Welcome back to Question Period on this Sunday. And the cabinet shuffle kerfuffle. The Prime Minister oversaw a late in the game and late in the week sizable reset of his front bench, adding 8 new faces to cabinet and 4 existing ministers who will see their portfolios change. They took questions from reporters in a trio of post-shuffle press conferences. Have a listen.
What you're seeing today is a cabinet full of new energy, obviously coupled with experience and competence.
I believe this is a moment where we need to stand united. We need to stand united in the face of a growing incoming American presidency.
I understand there's going to be a short runway. I'm not blind to that. But if I can make a small difference, if I can make a big difference, I want to make the biggest difference that I can. That's why I joined politics in the first place.
So what can we conclude after the last week? Are the Liberals a sinking ship, or has this latest cabinet shuffle put them on track for smoother sailing ahead? The Scrum is back to unpack that question. Robert Fife is the Ottawa bureau chief for the Globe and Mail. Nick Nanos is the chief data scientist and founder of Nanos Research. And Hannah Thibedeau is a former news anchor. She's now an executive communications officer at Global Public Affairs. I mean, I posed the question, Bob, but it's hard to see how this cabinet shuffle could do anything amid the severity and the significance of the political questions surrounding the Prime Minister right now.
Well, look, the cabinet shuffle was completely irrelevant. It's a caretaker cabinet. We all know that, including the ministers who got the new jobs, because there's only one question being asked in this town, is when is he going to go? And, you know, I've spent the last few days talking to cabinet ministers and senior advisors and Liberal Party veterans, and they've had conversations with the Prime Minister. Everybody's had a different conversation. Some people have walked away thinking he's going to go. He understands, he's shell-shocked. He understands that he blew it the way he handled the Freeland affair. Others are saying, well, he's indicated to me that he's going to stay and fight. Look, he's over. This is done. He cannot survive this. I think you're going to see in early January he's going to come out and resign, and then they have to figure out how do you get a leadership convention in a minority parliament when the 3 opposition parties are saying we're going to take you down when the House of Commons comes back?
And that's the salient difference right now, right? If we are, Nick, to believe what the NEP is saying, which goes against what they've done so far, to be fair, but is that when the House resumes at the end of January, that they intend, they haven't defined at what point, but they intend to bring their own motion of non-confidence. They've said it now unequivocally. We no longer will keep the government in power. We will no longer keep propping up the government. How much does that change the dynamic of whatever the Prime Minister ultimately decides?
Well, I think it changes it significantly because, let's face it, all the opposition parties not only want an election, they want an election against Justin Trudeau, right? And, you know, the thing is, and I think this is especially true for Jagmeet Singh, like, he'll probably have a better election if Justin Trudeau happened to be the leader of the Liberal Party than allowing the Liberals to put someone new, which might kind of breathe some type of kind of fresh piece of, kind of breathe some life into them. Not saying it's going to change it. So, you know, from my perspective at least, you know, for the Liberals, it's going to be how can they have a leadership fast enough to change a leader in order for them to try to be a little more competitive, and then for the opposition parties, by hook or by crook, whether it's within or without the rules, to try to figure out a way to have an election with Justin Trudeau at the helm of the Liberal Party. Yeah,
it's so interesting because even if he decides, as Bob, you know, posed it at the beginning of January, it's time to go, what we thought could be, you know, another 8 months to the next election, providing for some more runway for a leadership contest, you know, no longer, it's just evaporated in the space of a moment when the NDP said that.
Absolutely. Everything changed when he put that letter out today. So all the smart people behind the scenes were telling me how this could potentially work out. So if there is no prorogation, what would happen? The House returns on the 27th. They basically have a month before opposition days come into place. There's all this machinations behind how that technically happens, but it's around February 27th where we'd likely see the first opposition day because it has to happen. But if the government wants to control, and you would not want to put when an election is being held with the opposition, you want to control that. So you are likely going to prorogue. That would be my thought. There's only one way out of this at this point. Prorogation, then you figure out who the leader will be and control it. Come out with a strong throne speech, and then you go to an election on that, because that would be laying out what your agenda would be.
Do you think it makes a difference who the leader is at this point for the Liberals, Bob? And I have the same question for you, Nick.
Probably not, but it could mean that they lose fewer seats.
Right.
Yeah.
Because Mr. Trudeau is, like the whole country just wants to see the end of them. So what they have to figure out is, they can, under the Constitution, they can appoint, the caucus can appoint an interim leader, and then they can have a quick convention to affirm that leader. But we saw that happen with Kamala Harris, and it didn't work out. And I think they want to have some kind of a convention, but we run into this whole problem is he would have to then prorogue. Will the Governor General allow him to prorogue? Because if Mr. Poilievre has said he wants the Governor General to recall Parliament, which that can't happen. But if the three opposition parties say you should not prorogue to save Justin Trudeau's life,
like that, yeah.
Where do we go from there? I don't know.
It would be pretty unprecedented for the Governor General to go against the ask of the Prime Minister, but Bob raises an interesting point that if all of the parties are amping up their pressure on her to do so, with the question of confidence in the balance, that becomes a little bit of a tricky question.
Yeah, but there's another thing that we have to think about. So what we do know is that the Justin Trudeau brand is damaged, likely irrevocably damaged. If the Liberals try to engineer all this stuff, they have to worry about the Liberal brand being damaged, that the party is just looking to kind of engineer and stay in power, that they're putting the interests of the party ahead of the interests of the country at the time when we're dealing with Donald Trump. So, they might try to outsmart everyone from a parliamentary and procedural perspective, only to spite themselves, because Trudeau will be damaged, and then the Liberal Party brand will be even more damaged, because people will just be, they're already fed up. They're going to go, well, they're just holding on to power. There's no reason for them to go through all this, and the Liberals could be punished even more than they expect.
I just really quickly want to ask a follow-up.
Yeah.
Is there a path to victory? Let's say Trudeau quits. Is there a path to victory for the Liberals?
Well, Pierre Poilievre slipping on a banana peel, and I don't know. It's pretty tough.
That sums it up. Hannah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that the Chrystia Freeland made it pretty clear in her letter that the Liberal Party and the surrounding of the government is pretty much, the brand is done, by saying, look, you are using political gimmicks. That was, to me, the line that really stood out in the letter. Political gimmicks for your political life, essentially. So I think it's very precarious even for the Liberal Party right now if they don't make a move soon. And in particular, like when it comes to the Prime Minister coming out and speak, he has to say something. He has to say something decisively so that things become clear. 5 days as of Friday, he had not said a word about this. That leaves a void when it comes to the everybody internationally looking at this, and they are looking at it. Also, Canadians who are saying, what the heck is going on? And then finally, what about the markets as well? We've only seen him up until Friday at 2 Christmas parties giving thank you speeches, trying to look like everything is fine. It's not fine.
I got 30 seconds left. Last word to you.
I think the opposition parties are now united. The country needs an election. Why? Well, aside from the cost of living crisis the country is facing, we have a situation with Donald Trump, and that is a very serious thing. 70% of our goods going to the United States. He hits us with 25% tariffs. We're in a lot of economic trouble. And that's why I think I agree with him. The country needs an election. We need new leadership. It could be the Liberal leader. It could be Mr. Poilievre. But the country needs to have a new Prime Minister, a new government to be able to confront the Trump administration.
Bob Fife, Nick Nanos, and Hannah Thibedeau, thank you all so much.